Tonight, a fascinating tale of a 20-something suburban man who won $800,000 in sports bets. He traveled as far as Iowa to place his bets. Then when it came time to cash in, the casino said, no way.
So I'm going to start this video off with a bit of a controversial take, with a bit of a controversial statement that many of you out there in the audience might disagree with me on. And that is, I'm not a fan of gambling. I'm not into it at all whatsoever. And one of the reasons why is because my wife and I really like this hotel that is up in Boston that happens to be a casino hotel. The amenities are absolutely great. With my credit card, I'm able to get free upgrades in the room, plus all these different various credits, and it is one of the most top tier hotels I've ever stayed in. That being said, I don't go to the casino part, and one of the reasons why I don't go to the casino part of the hotel is because when you look in the eyes of the people that show up to gamble, the regulars at this casino, what you realize is that the light is gone from their eyes, and I have not seen the light vanish from somebody's eyes, their soul be removed ever since I looked at any of my ex-girlfriends. It is just that devastating, and I cannot be surrounded by a room full of people that have just lost all aspects of their humanity, again, like all my ex-girlfriends, but due to the fact that they're gambling. So right off the top, from the jump, my biases are against gambling, are against this whole system. I'm not about it. But the fact is, in this particular case, we have somebody who's really good at gambling, who knows the system, who's done all of his research. And like we see time and time again with these casinos, they ban you for being too good at what you're doing. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
These are the winners. I'm holding, theoretically, or what should be $800,000 in my hand.
We meet 24-year-old Thomas McPeak in the home he shares with his parents. An area in their house is a shrine to their favorite teams.
You researched, you've read every single one of these books.
Yeah, this was a calculated attack, I guess you could say, where I thought I had an edge.
This refers to stacks and stacks of sports bets placed last year. Complicated wagers on football called parlays, where several events all have to happen to win. First stop, Horseshoe Casino in Hammond in August.
You went in with $30,000.
Roughly over the course of 1 week-ish.
And your wins were $350,000?
$350,000.
Here we have a guy that happens to be really good at what he does. He, according to this local news report, has $800,000 worth of potentially winning tickets that were voided by the casino in this particular case. And by the way, the casino involved happens to be a Caesars affiliate, or actually two different Caesars affiliates, due to the fact that they say that he skirted the regulations and rules of the casino, and essentially they used terms of service in order to invalidate each and every one of his bets. And again, he's obviously good at what he does. $800,000 is nothing to sneeze at, but of course, the guy lives with his parents, he looks like a total nerd, and this is yet another reason why I am not a fan of gambling, because the fact is, the most successful people on online poker or in fantasy sports, which by the way is sponsored by a whole host of YouTubers just itching to get you gambling related to sports, are nerds. They're the math dorks. Those are the people that are the most successful. And in fact, a bunch of people have just transitioned from online poker to sports betting because a lot of it is just mathematics. And in my opinion, there is a fun that can be had when you're gambling on something, but that fun goes completely out the window when you're basically up against somebody who's a mathematical genius, and that gives him an overwhelming advantage against you. That ruins the will and the fun of the game. But that being said, this guy was able to initiate all these different various bets at these casinos. Some of them hit really big, but then all of a sudden Caesars was like, no, we're not paying you out. No good for you.
The next stop, the Isle Casino in Bettendorf, Iowa in September. Both locations happen to be owned by Caesars.
I take about $20,000. I sat at the kiosk for 4 hours just punching in my bets. Bet after bet after bet after bet after bet.
McPeak looks for wagers where he believes the odds are in his favor.
So look, obviously in this particular case, this guy is doing something a little bit suspicious. He is trying to fly under the radar, and that is for good reason, because if you are successful, like I said, at betting in these particular casinos, they will cut off your ability to make those bets. That being said, the local news just cracks me up in this particular story, because this woman just said, as a narrative portion of this particular story, that this guy looks for bets where he thinks the odds are in his favor. As opposed to what? Why would you even say that? Obviously, when you're gambling, hopefully when you are gambling, you're looking for bets that you think are favorable to you. It would be pretty bad and pretty embarrassing if you were looking for bets that were against you, that the odds were not in your favor. I don't understand what the narrative value of this particular sentence is in this local news story, and honestly, I could do an entire video essay on the fact that this sentence adds nothing of value to this entire conversation. But again, we're getting distracted. We're getting off topic. I'm getting distracted. I'm getting off topic. So let's get back to this so you guys can hear what be going on related to this guy's bets.
If you want to take a look at that notebook,
McPeak does extensive research, some of it laid out here in his handwriting. Over time, he and other professional gamblers believe they can gain an edge, but it's hardly a slam dunk.
it's not like I can just snap my fingers and just make the bets win. They still have to win.
Most of the tickets did not win,
In my hands right now, these are all losers,
but a few of the tickets were winners, big time.
and I won $350,000.
But they won't pay it to you.
No, they will not.
McPeak tells us Caesars voided the tickets when he tried to get his cash in October. He says he was referred to the house rules.
Do you think that's fair?
Of course not.
A similar story when he returned to the Iowa casino this January to collect $450,000 for these winning tickets. This time, he was given a printed sheet highlighting structuring or anti-money laundering rules and repeat wagering policies.
Look, I want to give you guys Caesar's explanation for why they're voiding this person's bets, and essentially the argument that Caesars is making is that had he come in and talked to a person, not gone to a kiosk, and placed his bets as large bets on the outcomes that he wanted, then they might have treated that differently. They might have rejected that at the point of him placing the bet, rather than him going to the kiosk and essentially doing these bets as little individual ones. So rather than putting one big wager on a potential outcome, what this guy was doing is that he would do 20 or 30 wagers on that outcome through the kiosk because he didn't want to engage with the person, because he didn't want them to detect his skill level, and that way he thought he could slip through and that the system would just record them as individual bets from potentially individual people, not one guy that's basically a mastermind behind this. That being said, Caesars took the bets. They did accept them, and again, his losses are taken as losses, and it seems like what they decided to do is wait for the outcomes of these particular bets and then refuse to pay him, which is actually different than other casinos that he's ended up winning at in the past.
You want to fly under the radar?
I want to fly under the radar.
McPeak, like many so-called advantage players, go out of their way to remain anonymous. McPeak places a lot of smaller bets at a kiosk instead of one big one with a clerk at the counter to avoid his bets being rejected. Listen to the lengths he'll go to.
I'll switch up to the disguise, sunglasses. I'll hide my hair in my hat. I'll put it up in a bun.
Horseshoe and Hammond banned McPeak and avoided his wagers. That's in contrast to FanDuel and Blue Chip Casino in Michigan City, which also banned McPeak after a big win. But Blue Chip paid him first.
They paid me a check of $127,000. They got beat. I won the bets.
Now look, obviously I have a separate issue with the fact that casinos will quite literally ban you from the casino if you're good at gambling. If you're too good, they don't want you to play there. But at least that first casino that he referenced, where he won $127,000, paid him out before they banned him. They knew that they accepted the bets. They decided that because they accepted them, they didn't catch him, that they were going to pay him the money. And that is where they left that particular situation. But these other casinos, again, which are supposedly governed by state regulatory boards, have decided after the fact that they're going to void all of his bets and not pay him any money, which is what I find to be the most ridiculous.
There's probably some details and some circumstances that we're not privy to.
Scott Morrow retired after a career at Las Vegas casinos and now teaches gaming at UNLV.
He went around, tried to circumvent the system, circumvent the house rules, and actually drive across state lines to circumvent it. So, I mean, I have a tough time finding sympathy for his case.
So they end up bringing in a couple of experts to discuss this particular situation, and first and foremost, they bring in a Las Vegas gambling regulator who takes the side of the casino. And again, this could be a reasonable position that he arrived to. This guy knows more about this than me, although I will point out that when you are in a regulatory position in any industry, the chances of you becoming a lobbyist later on for said industry are extraordinarily high, the revolving door. So So I'm not surprised to hear from this particular regulator that, oh, the guy is bad, the person who's too good at gambling, the person who didn't want to raise any kind of alarms when he was placing the bet is at issue, because this is typically what we see, industry capture of a regulatory office, although I will point out that this could just be his genuine heartfelt opinion as somebody who is retired from regulating casinos. So definitely a regulation man against the casinos, for sure, 100%.
I've never seen a situation like this before.
Eli Foystill literally wrote the book, multiple actually, on betting. He sides with McPeak, based on the timing of when Caesars voided the bets.
If Caesars had decided before the first game was played to void all the wagers, that would be fair. That would be saying you've broken the rules, and when they saw that they didn't win, when they waited to see if he'd win before they voided him, that's where the problem was. The clear answer is Caesars owes this.
There's no rules against staying under the radar. It's horrible what they're doing to me.
In the end, it may be up to a judge to decide.
Now look, I 100% agree with this sports guy. I mean, obviously he's looking at one of his pupils' cases because this is a guy who's read each and every book on sports betting, but I do think the fact that they waited until the bets ended up paying out to void them until this guy won $850,000 to make this decision is a big problem, and that's why I have that reaction, even though, of course, Caesar has their own terms of service and whatnot, and to be fair to Caesar's casinos, they're actually offering to void all of his bets, including his losing bets, so that he can receive the money that he originally started with. I just find this to be ridiculous in my opinion, and again, just another strike against the casino industry, because of course, their fundamental premise is the house always wins, but if you figure out a way to beat the house, they just kick you out. They just ban you, and then they refuse to pay you, and that is not what I'm all about. But of course, I want to know what you guys think about this down in the comments below. Do you share my aversion to gambling, or are you a gambling madman yourself? In addition to that, what do you think about this particular case? Should this guy get paid, or are we going to go terms of service? You are kind of sketchy. We don't like how good you are in gambling. Therefore, Caesars gets to keep all that money. Again, all your thoughts down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like this video, then show them by leaving a like. Subscribe for more content. Follow me on the social medias. Support me via support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about an absolutely crazy situation involving casinos. Till next time.